Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Melissa Bumbaco. We're just going to give it a few more minutes for everyone to join, and then we'll get started. All right, we'll give it one more minute here since we are at the 12 o'clock mark. Thank you guys for taking some time out of your lunch today to join us. All right, we are at 12:01, so I think we're going to kick off here as we've got a full presentation for you guys today. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining. I'm Melissa Bumbaco, and I sit on the ITGCs board, as well as co-chair the Emerging Professionals and She Lead Tech committees, along with Christina Cruz. We put together a great presentation for you today, and I'm excited to introduce Kevin Costello. Kevin will be walking you through his career, as well as providing you all with some tips and tricks on how to enhance your auditing skills. We encourage questions, and we do ask that you submit those via the Q&A button. And we will hold probably about a 10 to 15 minute Q&A session at the end of Kevin's presentation. That'll be facilitated by Jason Starr. We will then have a quick word from our sponsor, Arctic Wolf, which will be presented by Sean Campbell. Thank you, Sean and Arctic Wolf, for sponsoring today. We really do appreciate it. And lastly, we will have a raffle for a $50 Amazon gift card. In addition to this, all of you that joined today will be receiving a $10 Starbucks gift card for a coffee on us. We do appreciate you guys attending, and unfortunately, I know I said last quarter, hopefully we would be together in person this quarter, but it seems to be taking a little bit more time with everything going on in the world. So hopefully by next quarter, we will be able to get that coffee together in person. Just a quick note on the CPEs. You guys will be obtaining one CPE for all those that attend for the entire event, and you should be receiving that within a week of the presentation. Just want to make a quick plug on volunteering. Our events wouldn't be possible without volunteers like Kevin and Jason. So if any of you are interested in volunteering, I please ask that you either reach out to me directly or reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm available. You send me an email, or you can reach out to emergingpros@isacanewyork.org. Okay, with that, I think I've covered everything, so I will hand it over to Kevin. Thank you, Kevin.
Thanks, Alyssa, and thanks to the ITGCs Emerging Professionals Committee for kind of giving me an opportunity to come and speak to you all today. So when I was first approached by Alyssa, I kind of had that thought of like, why me? Like, what do I know that, I could share with these? Like, I definitely don't have it all figured out. And I'm still learning in my career as well. But as I thought about, this opportunity more, and I ultimately decided, if I could convince one person to take that next step in their career, or just inspire somebody to change directions or speak up for themselves at their work, that would kind of be worth it for me. So really that's my goal for this presentation is hopefully something I say kind of inspires at least one person here to go kind of press on, take that next step to kind of unlock their full potential and kind of what they want to accomplish in their career. So I'm happy to share kind of what works for me. I would say this is kind of like one way that you could go about it. There's multiple paths, and there's definitely not any right answers. But and I definitely, like I said, don't know it all. So really my kind of format of this is going to be as close as like a town hall that we could get in this kind of virtual age. So I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of my journey and kind of how I made it to where I am. And then we have a Q&A portion reserved at the end. So if you want to ask a question, please submit through the Zoom kind of Q&A button there. And we'll leave time at the end. And we really appreciate any questions and try to make this as interactive as we possibly can, given today's challenges. So with that, I'm just going to go ahead and jump in. So a little bit about me. I've been in the industry for 8 years, based out of New York City. I hold my Certified Information Systems Professional and Offensive Security Certified Professional certifications. I'm currently working as a technical program manager for Amazon in their devices business. So kind of taking a step back to the beginning, how did I kind of get there? So I had like a general technology affinity, I would say. It wasn't specifically focused on computers, but in high school, I was our AV, like audiovisual and sound engineer for the plays, kind of do my best to make them as close as like Broadway quality as I could, even at the high school level. My parents were both in the IT world, so they worked for General Electric back when they still had, floppy disks and all that good stuff. When I was kind of graduating college and looking to, graduating high school, looking to go to college, I had heard about this degree at Penn State called Security and Risk Analysis, and my cousin had actually gone and attended the college and really spoke highly of it. So that was kind of the first foray I had into what is now like the cybersecurity or security and privacy industry. So kind of coming to Penn State, I ended up doing a summer session, which is where you kind of go early and you get to learn about the school you're attending and meet some classmates and things like that. So I really enjoyed that. Decided that this was going to be something that I was going to pursue. I would say most of the classes were kind of your basic IT concepts, so like networking, you're learning about TCP protocols and things along those lines. That kind of progressed throughout freshman year as well. In my sophomore year, I had an opportunity that I took, and I kind of paused my college experience to go pursue a security engineer co-op at an investment company called MFS Financial Services in Boston. And I ended up staying there for 8 months. It was a bit of a different journey. Like most college experience are kind of linear. You do 4 years kind of back to back. And in my case, I did the summer session, which gave me kind of an opportunity to take this and go into the industry for almost a year and just learn hands-on kind of security concepts and how they're being applied in the financial services industry. And this is kind of where the rubber met the road, so to speak, for me. And you started taking kind of the fundamentals that you learn in a classroom and see how they're being applied in the real world. And I thought that was like the coolest thing ever. Kind of taking that theory, as in high school and stuff, it's all like kind of theory, and then you don't necessarily apply it directly. And where this was, you're learning about a concept, then you can kind of see it in action and see how it's getting built upon and stuff like that. It was in the same time that I decided to pursue a certification that I referenced earlier called Certified Information Systems Security Professional, the CISSP, offered by ISC Squared. So this is a certification that's usually kind of done when you're a couple of years out of school. But I decided that I was interested enough that I was just going to go ahead and study and take this paper-based test, and they grant you a status as associate of ISC Squared, kind of joiner, new joiner status. So you can demonstrate you have the knowledge and capabilities to kind of pass the paper kind of testing, and then you're just waiting for your levels of experience to be able to get the full certification. So this one was particularly interesting to me because it's kind of known as like a mile wide and an inch deep is like their selling points on it, where you learn a whole lot about all different kind of security disciplines, and then but you don't necessarily go kind of deep in any given area. So you come out with like a very much like an IT generalist, security generalist type of knowledge. And then going back to school with this certification, it all of a sudden became easy, because it was most of the classes were kind of a retread of the CISSP content, and I knew enough at that point to be able to kind of work my way through it. So basically the value I started getting from the college experience then was just like the networking abilities there. Like, right, I think when you go to a university, you have the backing of a large kind of organization willing you to be successful. So I think that was useful. And then also just the filling in the technical blanks, right? So as I said, it wasn't a very technical certification. So I found it useful to kind of take classes where you learn to code and more like technical concepts that I kind of rounded out my college experience with. So junior year, I ended up getting an internship at PwC in their risk assurance practice, and I converted that into a full-time offer, and that's kind of where I started my career after college. So I kind of take you through this college journey that I had to tell you that you actually don't need a degree to get into this industry. Like if this is something that you want to pursue, or maybe you went to college for something else and you want to switch careers, you don't need to go back to school to get the a cybersecurity degree. I mean, you can do that, but there's other ways that you can kind of build this skill set in order to kind of launch yourself into getting these entry-level jobs and ultimately progressing your career in this space. So I took the CISSP. There's other ones like Security Plus is another good one. They can kind of get you the necessary knowledge, and then you can use internships and co-ops and other of those types of opportunities, kind of get those years of experience to kind of get that first official entry-level job offer. And if you're currently in college and kind of looking to do this, I would also say college doesn't have to be like a linear 4-year progression, especially in today's world, right? Like online classes are usually just as good as the in-person instruction, sometimes even better. And you have that flexibility in most cases, kind of break up your college experience to really make it work for you. Again, there's no right answer to going to college or not going to college, and there's plenty of evidence for the argument to go and also to not go. So just kind of keep that in mind as you're looking to make these types of decisions and further your career. So now starting at PwC, I was at PwC.
Kevin,
sure.
Sorry, it's Alyssa. I just wanted to pause you. We can maybe just wait like a minute or two. I know you just got through kind of your college recap. That was great, but we do have a few people that are still joining that are having some issues with the link. So maybe we can just like give it a minute and see
for sure
if they're able to do that.
The more the merrier. I can sing some background tunes in the meanwhile. Completely kidding. I don't want to scare people away.
All the people who are not able to join, I have sent email to most of them. Actually, I can say all of them.
Okay.
And I'm sending another email to everyone, regardless they're emailing us or not.
Okay, perfect. So I think with that, then we are recording the session, so we can just.
If you want to take a couple minutes, but I responded to everyone, every single person who complained.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Sam.
No problem.
I'll just wait a second. I got a cup of coffee here, so
perfect.
Coffee break.
We do have more
brand.
people joining. Yes, that is on brand. We'll give it another minute. Thank you guys for all that are on, for your patience. We appreciate it. All right, I think we can start again, Kevin, if you're
Sure.
ready, and we'll take it off, I guess, from after school, right?
Yeah. So
Where to next?
right. Yeah. So I graduated from Penn State, and I had secured this kind of full-time job offer when I was there, which was awesome. You know, basically it became just making sure I graduated at that point, and then I started at PwC. And so if you're not familiar with kind of what PwC is, it's a big four kind of accounting and auditing consulting firm. So they have, you know, lots of different practices across lots of different industries all over the world. And I started in their risk assurance practice, which is their like audit practice. And I was kind of your classic associate like IT auditor role, you know, testing and evaluating IT general controls in these like workbooks, and you collect evidence and you know, do interviews and all that sorts of good stuff. I ultimately kind of decided that this was the current kind of role I was in was a little too summary level for what I wanted to start off with early in my career. And I really wanted to get that hands on the keyboard kind of technical experience earlier and go deep in a particular area before kind of zooming out and to be able to have that experience and be able to speak kind of like firsthand to it. So this was in, you know, roughly like 2015, you know, going into fall. I think I graduated in the summer, so I was going into fall, and the show Mr. Robot had aired that year. So of course, I was a big kind of fan of that show, and really decided to try to go into like the sexy part of the industry, which is like the offensive security space. So penetration testing, red teaming, and those types of activities. So I of course had no idea how I was going to go about doing this. But the one kind of critical thing that I did do, which I think is you know, very important and probably not enough is said about this, is just speaking up. You know, I spoke up at work. I talked to my manager at the time and just kind of like talked about what I was doing and what I, you know, thought I wanted to do, and eventually was introduced to some mentors at PwC that kind of got me started. Right at the time, this was a very small, specialized capability. They were delivering, you know, mostly web app and network-based penetration tests for clients like within the market that they were based out of. So, very, very small business, small time, specialized capability. And that's kind of how I got started. I started shadowing kind of the testers there, and then ultimately started doing my own engagements. And eventually kind of this capability became more and more needed by our clients for, you know, regulatory reasons or just kind of generic good practice from an IT security perspective. And we grew and ended up putting together a practice to support all of North America, which was really cool. So while I had my CISSP, I really didn't have any other sort of like certification from a technical perspective, just like work experience, hands on the keyboard. So I ended up taking the OSCP, which is Offensive Security Certified Professional. It's another cert that is out there. And in my opinion, it's kind of one of the better certifications that you can take if you want to go into this offensive security space. So it's a lab-based cert instead of like a paper-based where you read and pass a test. It's they have this whole lab environment where you get access to it, and it's kind of like a capture the flag type of format where you need to you know, exploit certain vulnerabilities on these different systems to get to this flag, which then you exchange for points, and you need a certain amount of points to pass the test. So I thought this was like a really great experience to learn these skills in a lab environment. And I mean, it's still a lab environment, right? So like there's certain things that you'll be able to do in a lab that you won't be able to do in the real life, but it really gave you that mindset to like think like a hacker, so to speak. Like there's a different way that that I found like a different mindset when you're doing these types of engagements, and it's a lot more creative or than you would think. Like, define these vulnerabilities, exploit them, and then use that to kind of get to the next one and keep these chains going. And today, that's pretty much what is being done by all these different news or articles you read about. Is like it's usually not one vulnerability. It's kind of a chain of vulnerabilities that people are exploiting to achieve this objective. So if anyone's looking to kind of get in that space, highly recommend OSCP. They have other certifications too, kind of based on your experience or skill sets that you want to build. But that one was awesome. So after I kind of passed this test, and I passed the test first try in 19 hours, which I'm super proud about. And it was a record at PwC for a while. I'm not sure if it's still the record, but if anyone can best that in the first attempt, definitely drop me a line and brag about it. But this kind of really unlocked my experience at PwC even further. So I had mentioned that this capability kind of went from like a small market-based capability to being more needed globally, or at least across North America. So we kind of built this center of excellence within PwC to do these offensive focused engagements. So we went from like just normal web app testing to more like red teaming, purple teaming, physical and virtual social engineering exercises to really try to emulate those nation state or advanced threat actors to accomplish a goal and kind of realize a business risk for the folks that were kind of paying us as our clients. So I can't really talk about kind of too much of what we did, but there's some kind of really cool war stories. So just the concept of getting paid to kind of break into buildings using badge cloning technologies, social engineering people that way. That's just kind of a weird white hat mindset to think about. You're getting paid to break into a building, and all the different ways that you can test the security that way. One time I was able to break into this building, but then I got locked into the building. So, having to survive in this like corporate setting on, vending machine food, social the different ways to social engineer yourself into a company from over the internet, right? So signing up for job posting and trying to, social engineer in that way. A lot of the engagements that we delivered required like custom implants. So you basically be building malware for these engagements to use. And I got something I built signatured by the government, and kind of waking up one morning and going to the laptop and just having all your files start being eaten by antivirus. So that was a unique experience. And then the last one I'll share is just, the types of different clients that you work on, right? You can work on financial services one week and just like these large networking companies another. So on one of the engagements, we were actually able to get into like a backbone internet router and take over it, and just that nerve-wracking experience of having one wrong command and you would like take down the internet for a state or a couple states. Those types of experiences can only kind of come through client services, in my opinion, but then also these like offensive focus engagements. It sounds like really cool, like all the outcomes, but the reality is it's not what it looks like in the movies. And it's more or less me sitting there kind of trying and failing a bunch of times until you find that one success that kind of propels you into the next challenge. So I talked a lot about the PwC experience and just the client services, and I really did enjoy it. I think it's a great way to get started in your career, right? You just get to so much exposure to different environments, different management styles, different people, what kind of cultures you like, what industries, and it's a great way just to see a lot. There is some cons to it, right? Very kind of challenging. You're flying around all the time. I think eventually I wanted to kind of settle down and not be kind of the consulting, traveling all over the place, and try something new, basically. so that kind of brings me to where I am today at Amazon. So I left PwC like 2.5 years ago to take this position at Amazon. I'm doing very similar things at Amazon, so it's very offensive security heavy at it. So I'm a technical program manager in the devices business. So we do more like product security type of activities, which basically means like we'll do penetration testing and red teaming exercises on products before they get shipped out to customers. So this kind of switch from your corporate security type of role to this product security role has been pretty cool in my experience so far. It's a lot different than what you would expect, right? Because these products have stacks of their own, and just the diverse nature of security skill sets that you need, from like hardware to system on chips, kind of firmware, the operating system, then to the apps on the operating system, and then you start talking about the backend services. So you have cloud services and like all the kind of security focus that goes into there. Has been really kind of cool to just switch the paradigm. And I think this is something that people coming into the industry kind of need today, is like you definitely need to specialize in something. That it's good to kind of get do the CISSP and get get a certification in a certain area. But then really to kind of differentiate yourself, my suggestion would be to really look and see like what you're interested in within the security space, and then go specialize in that area, whether that be like cloud security, working, looking at the AWS services and securing them, or you could do like low level stuff where you're looking at like actual like microchips and how, what's the security assumptions that go into those. I think that's really where the industry is going. Like it's kind of gone from a IT generalist or IT focused to now very specialized security technologies and security knowledge that's needed to secure these things. The other cool part about working at Amazon has been this kind of like, it's almost like a little startup opportunity, at least the team I'm on within this big behemoth Amazon, right? So you build like business skills that I was building in consulting, even more of like, right, like how we have services that we're offering to internal customers, and how do we make the experience better for them and the output better for them so it's more consumable and they can fix these things and things like that. So that's been really cool too, just getting, I went from very like technical focus, like hands on the keyboard type of role, and started doing this at the end of like my PwC career, but then really kind of doing it now, of like, how do we like market our programs internally and all that kind of stuff. So it is, Amazon is by no means like a startup anymore, but it still has like a startup culture of being scrappy and iterations and things like that. So that's kind of my journey. I'd say, the key takeaways that I hope came through, it would be, you have to kind of speak up for yourself. That was a key moment for me, is being able to speak up at work, and having the trust in my kind of manager to understand and help me to achieve my goal. And then also, you have to be the biggest owner of your own career in terms of like doing certificate or certifications and doing those trainings and getting that experience and skill sets that you want, to be able to kind of do the things that you're passionate about in your own career. And no one's really going to hand it to you. It's a combination of knowing and networking with the right people, and then having kind of the drive and abilities to go take these different trainings and certifications and whatnot, and make it happen. So I'm gonna stop talking now. We're gonna transition into the Q&A portion. I'll also leave my LinkedIn link in the chat if anyone wants to kind of connect or network outside of this. Happy to, if I can be of any help of any way, definitely I will. And looking forward to networking more.
Great, thank you, Kevin. It's an incredible story, and really appreciate you sharing your career journey with us. And we've had a number of questions coming in, so hopefully we can get right into it here. And anyone else that has a question, feel free to continue to use the Q&A button there at the bottom. So your path, Kevin, from into cybersecurity, several steps were involved, from your education, then your risk associate position at PwC, and getting more involved in red teaming, and then over to Amazon, all very impressive. So as you look to go further into cyber, was it more about transferring some of your strengths as a risk associate, and that how to apply them into a new field, or was it really more about reinventing yourself and gaining new skills altogether?
I think it was a combination of that, right? Like when I first started out, I think my strengths were, kind of this technical skill set that I was building. And then one thing that client services definitely makes you kind of aware of is like communicate. It's like soft skills, like communication, both in writing and also kind of verbally. So kind of taking my strengths, which was at the time like kind of my technical acumen, and then I had the weakness would have been like kind of my public speaking, and then kind of turning that into a strength is really kind of how I felt that my career kind of progressed kind of quickly, right? Like it's one thing to have the technical abilities to be able to do these things on the keyboard, but then I think it's completely different to be able to like tell somebody in terms they understand what you did and why it matters. That's like a big skill that is missing in my experience in a lot of different places, just because some people kind of go all the way down the technical path and then kind of lose their soft skill abilities. So that was important in the client services world, but the same could be said for probably any corporate kind of environment, just being able to tailor a message to whoever you're talking to, executive or technical or otherwise.
Oh, that's a great point. Yeah, I guess the communication skills are always big, and no matter what field you choose to go down. We have had a number of questions come in related to certifications. So we'll start with just the general one here. It does seem like certifications were really helpful to you in terms of selecting the right ones that would help kind of propel you forward. And so I guess just in general for the audience, as you're looking to progress in cybersecurity, how do you recommend kind of the overall approach to certifications? Can you obtain, too many? How do you kind of balance the leadership development with the technical skills? I guess in line with what you were just talking about.
Yeah, for sure. So I would say, like, I mentioned some of them in like CISSP, OSCP. I think those are obviously good. In more like general terms, though, I would kind of recommend you look at these certifications more of the skills or knowledge that they will kind of give you, rather than the 4 letters or whatever that you can put at the end of your name. Like I would say, in most cases I've seen, like you're not going to get a significant value add from like the 4 letters, right? Like the value is going to come from what you learned during the certification. And one kind of quick kind of litmus test you could do is, if you were to take this class and kind of walk away on the last day before the test, would that still, without getting like these like certification, the piece of paper and all that, like would you still have found value in the content that you took? So I think that is kind of key detail, and that's kind of how I look at them. I think another kind of general, not rule of thumb, but litmus test you could do is like, I like the hands-on ones personally. Like I've taken a couple of the paper-based ones and then taken the hands-on ones. The hands-on ones, or at least like some component of hands-on, are generally better. You learn the most by doing. Someone smart kind of said that. So I think that's really where the kind of value comes from.
Oh, that's good advice. And just a few more questions, a little bit more fine-pointed related to the certifications. I guess we have one individual asked, if you're targeting a career path as a manager, or perhaps a chief information security officer, how many certifications is too many?
Good question.
10 to 15 certifications, is that too many? And how do you kind of keep up with all of that? It might not even be feasible, so.
Yeah. So, I mean, if your aspiration is to be in kind of an executive leadership team, like a CISO, certifications probably isn't the only thing you'll need. And after a certain point, they kind of stop mattering. Like I would say, like, if you're starting out in your career and your goal is to get to that level, like just pick one area and specialize in that, and then that will kind of lead those to those other kind of executive level roles, right? Like I I I would bet most executives that you talk to specialized at something early on in their career and got very good at that, and then kind of naturally, as they work your way up the different levels, you naturally become more of a generalist. So if that's something that is your goal, I would say pick something that is somewhat specialized in this day and age, and then you can kind of start there and work your way up to kind of get to those CISO level positions.
That makes a lot of sense. And then, just another question. You mentioned the OSCP, the Offensive Security Certified Professional, and I guess there's also the CEH, the Certified Ethical Hacker certification out there. Any opinions about, either of those? I know you chose one over the other, but if you have experience with the CEH.
I do have some experience with CEH. That one is paper based, so I mean, it's good to learn like the theory and stuff, but I think you'll learn much more on the OSCP, and they're just for the sole reason of like, right, to study for the CH, you're probably going to be reading a book or doing flashcards, like your traditional kind of studying. With the OSCP, the way that you study and prepare for it is by like doing in their like test lab environment. So you'll actually like get used to the methodology and kind of skill set that you'll need for the actual test. And if you don't have access to their lab environment yet, there's other things that you can do. Like there's hack the box type of challenges where they're more like capture the flag focused, but it's still the same mindset and same skill sets that you would use for the actual OSCP.
That makes sense. And then I guess what's your I guess cybersecurity is a broad field in general. What do you suggest about exposure to the SOC? So I assume, this individual means the Security Operations Center and the CERT, for the cybersecurity career overall. I mean, I know there's some differing opinions about this. I mean, could get some great insights, of course, in the Security Operations Center, but what do you think about that for long term?
So I chose a more of like offensive focused career, but as you kind of get more into the advanced stuff, like the red teaming, you learn a lot about the blue team side of it, is what I'll say. So I think like some of the SOC analysts or threat hunters that I've kind of worked with are like super smart individuals that could probably do the offensive side too. And the reason I say that is like when you're doing these nation state emulations or these like advanced red team engagements, a lot of time and focus goes into like OPSEC, operation security considerations, like basically knowing like when you run a given command, what is actually happening on the wire, where are the opportunities for them to come in and detect, and then how do I add obfuscation or other layers of kind of complexities to those areas to kind of go undetected. So in order to kind of do that, you have to understand how these different SOC systems work and like what the processes are to ultimately beat them is like the goal. And that's kind of like the cat and mouse game. That's like the classic cliche analogy within security is like, you have the red team being, one step ahead and the blue team catching up, and the red team having to like change their approaches. So if you're on like the blue team side, that's definitely one way to do it. And I would also say like sometimes that gives you a better think like a hacker type of mindset, because you know what you would be looking for on the blue team, and basically to like not kind of make those mistakes or make it too easy on them.
Oh yeah, that makes sense in terms of the bigger picture and how it all comes together. So that's great. And then one more here about the OSCP. I guess that's a pretty expensive certification. How is
Yeah.
that, financed for you? Is there any recommendations that you'd have?
So I had my company actually paid for the OSCP, and I think most companies have like some sort of training budget. So that's how I ended up getting it. I paid for the CISSP out of pocket because I was just like a co-op at the time. It was more of like I wanted to learn that. But yeah, the OSCP is expensive. It was I got my employer to pay for it. A lot of times, what I've seen is even like in the entry level positions, like they will do that, especially on the big four side as well. Like if you're looking, maybe if your current employer won't pay for it, in any sort of client services type of environment, like PwC or any other consulting environment, OSCP is a lot of times like a prereq that companies will look for when they're looking at these providers. So, that's sometimes a good way to get it financed as well if you're in that field or consulting in general.
That's great. And then, one other question here. So I guess, just in general, as you're working with an organization and you bring a lot of knowledge and experience and certifications, and, they're still quite against progress and, kind of pro old ideas. Any recommendations for how you deal, with an organization if that is, kind of the work environment that you're in?
So a lot of times, like what I've seen is the same like old tried and true kind of security problems, I would say, are still present in even like today's technology, right? Like I'll give an example. So the classic kind of thing that we would always look for on these like pen testing or red team engagements was just like passwords in places where they're not supposed to be, right? Like whether they're stored in like a text file on file shares, or that's kind of like the extreme worst case, like it's just laying on a text file. But what we found is even as the technologies kind of grow, like now you have all these like Docker or like container type of systems, the weaknesses haven't really changed much, right? Like a lot of times you can find the credentials for these like Docker containers just on some configuration file laying on the host itself. And it kind of, it's not a file share at this point, but it's still kind of the premise of credential protection, and is not always the greatest. And I think that can be said for like other areas as well, right? Like using password one as a password, right? Like no one should be using that password today, and that's probably been security guidance since like the 90s, and yet you still find teams or people kind of using that. So I would say like the classics are still hits in a lot of ways. So like if you can just kind of like use the like classic recommendations, but then just find new ways, yes, and the name of the file, yes, and just find new ways to apply those to like today's technologies, you'll probably find that they still hold true.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. And I guess, similar to that, along the same lines, as you're looking at different industries, I guess in your consulting career, you came across, a number of different organizations that you worked with, and, probably across a lot of different industries as well. How did you decide what sector that you really wanted to enter? And you also, I mean, talked a lot about specialization as well. So does that kind of, go into the decision as well?
Yeah, so I would say Amazon kind of found me in a lot of ways, like, but there was definitely some considerations going into like big tech and being on the leading edge. I think the other appealing thing for me and Amazon was just the breadth of different technologies that you get to work with. Like, right, you have Alexa, who is like a voice interaction. Then we also have like tablets, which is like consumer electronics. And then you start including subsidiaries, you have like Ring cameras and Arrow routers. So there was just a large kind of footprint of different technologies that I could kind of get involved into. And I think that was a lot of the reason why I came to Amazon. But then if you're looking to kind of get into the industry, like you can, this is cybersecurity or IT security or whatever your nomenclature you want to call it today is going to be everywhere. It already is everywhere. So start with your interests. That's an easy way to kind of get into it. Like, what are you interested in? What do those tech kind of companies do? And they at the very least should have like some sort of like corporate security function that you can kind of get plugged into and start to gain some experience around.
Yeah, that's great. That makes a lot of sense. And then, as you mentioned, I mean, the cloud, obviously really, increasing exponentially, and kind of the need for security skills in that field. We did have one question about certifications in cloud security, and CCSP and CCSK were mentioned. I mean, are those some of the top certs that you see for cloud security? Are there any others that the audience should keep in mind as well?
I'm not as familiar with those ones, but I would say kind of just point back to my general kind of recommendation, right? It's less about the name or the 4 letters and more about like, how are you going to apply that knowledge to wherever you're going, right? So like, I'm going to be biased because I work at Amazon, right? I would say go to the AWS ones. But if your company is using Azure or Google, or probably not the best use of time there to make it relevant. So first focus on kind of what you envision yourself doing, and then you can kind of work backwards to plug the certifications kind of in depending on what you want to do. So I mean, that same can be said for, right, like there's some really good networking ones, like Cisco has a couple that are just like, they would probably be applicable to almost every company that's out there. So that's kind of where I would start.
Yeah, that makes sense. We just have one more on certifications as well. How much would you say from a certification would actually get implemented in an organization? So I guess that may depend, kind of if it's a more general certification or if it's related to a specific technology, but kind of an interesting question there. How much do you see actually kind of applied?
I would say you will apply, like if you take something like an OSCP and you're going to be doing like pen testing, you will apply that pretty much every day that you're like working on that space. Like I'd say the CISSP is a little bit different because it's just so broad. Like right, like some of the things that I learned about were like data center security controls of like, what type of gas can be used to put out like a data center fire. Like I definitely don't use that every day, but like it's kind of good to know. And I do find situations where like maybe you're talking to somebody that is like, this is their world and they use some of these terms, and you at least have like a level of familiarity on like what they're talking about, so you don't stick your foot in your mouth or something like that when trying to interface with these people. So from that perspective, it's useful. I'd say it really depends on the certification, kind of what you want to do with it, to like how much you'll actually use it. You'll definitely use some of it. It may not be like 100%, but a large portion you'll use.
Yeah, that makes sense. And we had one question as well that has to do with the difference between certifications and employees that have both certifications and education as well. So I know that you had a degree that was pretty specialized, and you chose to choose as your major, but I don't, want to get you into any trouble, but if you want to comment, just in general on the difference between employees that have certifications, but also education, do you see a key difference there in terms of, perhaps the, their skills or their depth of knowledge? Or
yeah, sure. So I guess this is a good opportunity to tell like a story. So when I was at PwC, we had a bunch of different pen testers, and we would like go hire for pen testers and stuff like that. And kind of what we found, which was kind of surprising, was like the folks with like a Bachelor of Arts in like psychology or like these like soft, your classic kind of soft skills, were always better at like not always, but most times we're better than like your like very technical, like hands-on like person that specialized and graduated for this. And my theory on why that is like, especially in the penetration testing side or these offensive security engagements, like there's a large amount of creativity that goes into them to make them convincing and believable that I think a lot of like maybe like the non like super techie people are like miss, I guess, with the soft skills, right? So that was like an interesting kind of antidote that I observed at PwC, where like these people didn't go to school for it. They had like Bachelor of Arts in psychology and like other different things, but they turned out to be like awesome resources. I think really like what I look at is it's less about like what's on the piece of paper that you give me for like a job interview, and more of like what can I glean in the interview process itself. Like if I'm asking about certain technologies, like it'll be pretty obvious whether you know it or not. So I think it's less about the kind of letters next to your name or the words in the paper, and more of like putting it into practice when you're interviewing, when you're at your current job, or kind of whatever it is. Hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, no, definitely. Thank you, Kevin. And yeah, just one final question here. So, coming a little bit from a different lens, more of the hiring and the management approach. Do you have any tips or suggestions in recruiting and retraining talent? I guess, as we know, it's a competitive market. Anything you'd like to share on that?
So, I mean, I think hiring is all like about the people, right? Like I think the best strategies that I've kind of been involved in is very like people oriented, right? Like showing up on campuses and talking to students and figuring out from that like how to build your kind of feeder pipeline. So like all the hiring that I've been involved in has been very much about around that, and like under the premise that if we can get a couple of these folks that seem smart and put together, that we can kind of teach them through work experience and whatever they need to know. So I think that still kind of rings true. Like it's less about, again, like back to my example on like the pen tester with the BA in psychology being just like awesome at this. Like it's kind of less about like, I mean, it's definitely important like what they study, and that's kind of like your initial funnel. But if you can connect with a person and they seem passionate and motivated, and you can teach a lot of these things to anyone. And I think as far as like retraining goes, I've also seen people that have been like in the finance industry just like switch their stars and come to this world. And it does take a level of technical retraining. You have to learn these concepts and kind of start from square one, but I do think anyone can really learn this stuff with enough motivation, dedication. So I wouldn't look at that like, as long as that individual is expressing a desire to kind of learn, and with the expectation or at least the upfront assumption that it's not going to happen overnight, then anybody can change their stars, really.
Excellent. Well, that's very encouraging advice. So thank you so much, Kevin. This has been a great session with you, and everyone feel free to reach out to Kevin as well using the LinkedIn chat. And I guess at this point that concludes the Q&A portion, and we'll turn things over to Sean Campbell from Arctic Wolf for a brief presentation. So Sean, over to you.
Thanks, Jason, and thank you, ISACA, for the opportunity, and everyone for joining. That was a really compelling story, Kevin. I appreciate you diving into detail there. So I'm only going to change pace just a little bit to talk a little bit about who Arctic Wolf is. We had the opportunity to sponsor today's coffee break, so it's actually a privilege. Can everyone see my screen? Just want to confirm real quick. Someone give me a thumbs up.
You're good. Yes, we're good.
Awesome. Okay, so really quickly, just talk a little bit about Arctic Wolf. I want to just comment on something Kevin said before, just in his day-to-day and some of his war stories. All it takes is being successful one time, as he pointed out. We think of things as being like the movies, really cool background music, and everyone's in a really dark room and something really crazy is about to happen. Well, in reality, a lot of that work is just in front of a computer, failing a lot, testing things and failing, testing things and failing until you're successful at one time. And it's really the life of the dark side of cybersecurity is, all it really takes is one. So Arctic Wolf was founded on this principle that we don't want to let that one time, tear down the entire house. And you really need the manpower in addition to the technology and expertise to do it. So we were founded in 2012. We have 750 plus certified technical resources globally, and they range from CISSP to OSCP. A lot of the certs we talked about today, CEH, cloud security certs. So for anyone actually looking to dive deeper into cybersecurity as a profession, even a bonus for anyone that is looking to pursue certifications and are looking for a company that would pay for that type of training, check out our Arctic Wolf. Our flagship offering is end-to-end security operations as a service. So now jumping into a little bit of our why, if you will. A CISO once said to me that scattered priorities and half-completed projects was the largest detriment to his team. And time savings and efficiency was the primary ROI he sought after. And so, Arctic Wolf, why do people choose our Arctic Wolf? This is a solution that we offer in the form of 24/7 security operations and response. So a lot of the customers that come to Arctic Wolf, they already have many security tools or other IT technologies with security features, as I like to say. And in turn, they end up with far too many alerts. And then there's an annual reoccurring challenge of trying to visualize everything into a single vantage point. And this, by the way, is very difficult to accomplish just because every company believes they have the best dashboard. And then due to that type of sprawl, it taxes resources and resource after resource, and then staffing becomes a problem. And then a greater challenge to that is skilled resources for every disparate tool or the next attack surface that they need to prepare and plan around. And you think about that, the attack surfaces are constantly evolving. And so the skill sets and the adjustment to keeping up with those surfaces, there's a little bit of a lag there. And that's why we have so many eager professionals that want to learn more. And I think that's great. But if you think about it, you've got cloud security, you've got API security, you've got securing IoT devices, right? And so who's going to be a master of all these trades? It's very difficult to do, especially if you already have a small team. So what happens when something does happen? Who can you call to eradicate a threat? And how quickly can they help? Is the damage already done? And how much does that even cost? And then, lastly, what do we do if it occurs at 3 a.m. on a Saturday? So a lot of these challenges resonate with a lot of our customers. And, fortunately, what we've done is as a business model, and what we want to offer is driving better security outcomes, right? So all those questions I asked, there needs to be answers to those things. So, as a company, we own the critical outcomes that determine whether security operations at your organization is efficient or not. One of the most important cybersecurity metrics today is something called mean time to identify. Usually it's called dwell time. And that really just revolves around how quickly can you detect a threat? Can you detect an intrusion in 30 minutes or less? One of the things Kevin mentioned was he's always, one of the things they would always do is look for text files containing passwords. How about if the password file name is actually password? You'd be surprised. This is very common. Of the customers we've surveyed and gathered statistics around, 70% of them have had some form of plain text passwords or other form of PII exposure online. Nearly half have had threat activity caught by Arctic Wolf that was missed by a native tool that they already had installed. And 35% of those customers routinely see threat activity that's occurring between 8 p.m. and 8 a.m. Surprising, right? So in summary, driving better outcomes across multiple disciplines in cybersecurity is really the key to improving your overall security posture. And that's one of the unique benefits of embracing security operations via Arctic Wolf, bringing that expertise, that human element to the table. And so in summary, what I just really wanted to encompass there is Arctic Wolf is unique because we have a purpose-built way of delivering our service, from the vendor agnostic platform that we use to gather telemetry and curate intelligence, to the service delivery model, which really provides that speed and accuracy that you need. And we heavily invest in that so that we can efficiently scale security operations globally across a wide array of customers. And that really moves the needle of security effectiveness so that you get better protection in a way that's fast to deploy and easy to operate. So we think about that when we keep all of our customers in mind, so that they know that they can benefit from that efficiency and you get that protection that you need. And it's also done in an affordable way. So you're not buying all these disparate tools just to turn around and buy even more. So we do believe and pride ourselves upon the fact that in this industry, we can offer this unique combination of protection, speed, and ultimately value. And I didn't time that, but that's 1 o'clock on the dot. So I do appreciate everyone's time. And thank you guys again.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you very much. And thank you, Kevin, for your great insight today. My name is Alex Bazay, and I'm a board member of ISACA community. And that's going to conclude our session. And to the end of our session, we're going to have a little raffle that we promise. I'm going to share my screen. Let me know when you see it. Do you see it?
I can see it now. Yep.
Great. So that's our magic wheel. Here we go. And the winner of today's raffle is Basim Rafael. Basim, we're gonna contact you how you can get your prize. Again, it's a $50 Amazon gift card. Thank you very much. Thank you for attending us today. Guys, back to you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, everybody, for joining today. Really appreciate it. Thank you to Kevin, to Jason, Sean, and Arctic Wolf. We appreciate your time. Apologize to anybody that had issues joining. We are going to be making the recording available to everybody so that if they missed the first part, you guys will be able to catch up on that. Again, keep an eye out for your Starbucks gift card that we'll be sending out. And if anybody wants to participate in any of these events, please reach out to me and we can definitely make that happen. We're also going to be sending a survey out after the event. So if you could complete that survey, provide us with any feedback, we'd really appreciate it. With that, that concludes our event. Thanks for hanging around for a little bit extra. And I hope you all have a great day.